I got drafted. I had gone through training camp. I had played a few games, and then the Lakers came to Dallas to play us. And I was on the floor, and I stood next to Kareem. It just finally hit me. My dream has come true. I'm playing NBA basketball. It never dawned on me. All I looked at is, okay, I'm here. Let me work at this thing. Let me get it done. But it finally hit me when I was able to see Kareem up close and personal. Man, I'm actually playing NBA basketball. This is unbelievable. This was my dream as a child. I mean, a young kid to be able to get to this level. So it was an awesome experience.
And you are in Australia right now.
You're talking NBA basketball. You're talking great teams. You're talking great individual players.
Takes it off, and there's number 23, and of course Johnny goes nuts.
So we're all getting goosebumps thinking about it now.
I just tried to go out there and play my game.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Adam. I don't like anybody. I'm not a people person.
Strand, you make the pass, yes. Christian, can you catch the ball? Yes.
All the stars were aligned and all the muscles fired at the right time, and I was able to get off the ground and throw one down.
I was saving that as a surprise for you.
And now, introducing your host for In All Airness, Adam Ryan.
Welcome to episode 57. Thanks for joining me. Stay up to date with my monthly email newsletter. You'll receive exclusive details on upcoming podcast episodes, future high-profile guests to appear on the show, and much more. Simply visit inallairness.com/news. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome NBA great Dale Ellis to the show. Thanks to Paul Corliss and the Retired Players Association team for the assist. Check out legendsofbasketball.com for more. This is one of my favourite episodes to date. It's a wide-ranging conversation about Dale's fantastic career. Parts of our chat were slightly hindered by some Skype sound issues. Dale heard me fine, and you'll note my side of the audio is great. Dale's audio is very listenable, but I do set high sound quality standards. You will hear the serene outdoor ambience at Dale's end, which is relaxing. Towards the end of the episode, I'll share another great podcast review. Add yours by visiting inallairness.com/review. Show notes for this episode, including plenty of links to the numerous topics we covered in this chat, can be found at inallairness.com/57. Now, onto the show. My guest today starred at Tennessee, and he won the SEC Player of the Year award twice. He was a first-team All-American as a senior. He played 17 seasons in the NBA and was the first player ever to rack up 1,000 made three-point field goals. Dale Ellis, thank you very much for joining me.
Fantastic. Adam, thanks for having me on. I'm excited about the interview.
Oh, I can't wait to chat to you. It's just an honour to be able to speak with you today. Now, I actually read that you were a dynamite player when you were in high school in Georgia, but I don't really know anything at all about those years of your career. Do you mind just talking a little bit about your high school days, and then at what point did you start receiving some offers to play in college?
We had a very good high school basketball team. I grew up in an era where, as a youngster, what I did was I up underneath those older guys that understood how to play the game. When I got into the NBA, I reflect back and think about some of the guys that I played with and against in high school. I thought a lot of those guys got great opportunities to play NBA basketball, but just stuck with it. But I was fortunate. I grew up with a twin brother. So we competed together and competed against one another all the time. So basketball was my love, my joy. That's what I did every single day. If I had a problem at home or at school or with girls, I'd go and take it out on the basketball court. But we had a great high school basketball team. When I was back in the late 70s, you had Southwest Macon was the #1 high school team in the nation. Mm-hmm. You had Norm Nixon comes out of that school, and Terry Fair, Jeff Malone, Michael Hunt. He had some great players come out of that school. So we were trying to be right up there and competing with those guys.
And what level did your brother get to in terms of his playing career? I didn't actually know you had a twin brother.
Right. I chose to go to the University of Tennessee. We split up, and he went to Savannah State. He played for a couple of years and gave it up and went into the military. I'm from a military-based family, for lack of a better term to say. My mother and father were both in the Army, and my oldest brother was a Marine, and my twin decided to go into the service country, and he was a Marine as well.
Do you think that military and Marine background would have helped your on-court demeanour and the way you came across? Because you look like you're always such a competitor on the court, even from the earliest footage I've seen of yourself. You just look to be so focused when you were playing each game.
Well, I didn't jump around from base to base, that type of family. My mother and father were separated when my twin and I was born.
Right.
We're the youngest. We're the youngest in the family, so I didn't grow up in that type of environment. Yeah, but mom was very strict. She kept me straight.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of things. I always believe that if you're working hard at what you want to do, whatever you're trying to accomplish, your peers, your teachers, your coaches will notice that and go out of their way to help you achieve whatever goal you set for yourself.
You spent 4 seasons at Tennessee, and during your junior and senior season, you averaged better than 20 points a game and 6 rebounds a game. And then in your senior season, you were named first-team All-American alongside other great players, including Patrick Ewing, Michael Jordan, Ralph Sampson, and Wayman Tisdale. And every season, you also made the NCAA tournament. I think you went as far as the Sweet 16 as well,
right,
which is just a great effort. So how did that opportunity to play with Tennessee come about, and what made you choose to play with the Volunteers?
Well, I initially wanted to stay home. I'd never been away from home really other than visiting my family. My mother's out of Charleston, South Carolina. But I wanted to stay home and play at the University of Georgia. They signed Dominique Wilkin to a deal, and some other guys are out of the state that were nice players. And I was a little disappointed with that. I thought that they should have attacked me quicker. But I received my first college letter from the university. They were most consistent with coming down to watch me play games. And I had a chance to visit the campus along with some other campuses around the country. I really liked what I saw. I thought it was the best opportunity for me to get a chance to play right away and continue to develop my talent. So I chose the University of Tennessee. I think I couldn't have made a better choice.
Yeah, there's some great footage I found online in the last day or two when I've been trying to find out a bit more about your college career, and it certainly looked like a fantastic atmosphere to be playing in front of as well. Not to mention that you've got some great players only a few years before you were Ernie Grunfeld and Bernard King, of course, 2 legends of the university as well.
Right. It was SEC basketball. SEC back then was known basically for football. And I think we brought in a new generation of excited basketball fans.
Is it also true that I believe you crossed paths with WWE legend Kevin Nash? He was a teammate of yours at Tennessee.
Yes, he was. Nash was a senior when I was a freshman. I learned a lot from all my teammates, from Kevin Nash to Mike Stapleton, get me to understand that this is not just fun and games. This is a physical basketball game. It's a physical sport. You have to come with it. And Reggie Johnson played professional basketball, and Howard Wood also. Those guys had a lot of poise about themselves and be able to make shots in clutch situations. So I tried to apply that to my game. As a freshman coming in, I saw Gary Carter and Steve Ray, and those guys, I looked at them and I thought, if I was going to get to the pro level, I have to be as good as those 2 guys. So I watched their games and tried to apply it to my game. And I had other teammates that gave me to understand it was not all about basketball, that you have to hit these books because you can't play basketball all your life. So I played with guys that had dreams of playing professional basketball and guys that were using this opportunity to get an education to further their lives. So I tried to pull from all those guys and apply what was good in what they were doing to my life. I was in a great environment there at the University of Tennessee. I couldn't have picked a better place.
Sounds like a fantastic environment. I'll talk a little bit about your jersey retirement with the Volunteers a bit later on. I saw the video footage of that just last night, and it looked like you've just got some great teammates from all those years ago. Many of them were present at that particular ceremony, and it looked like they were all so pleased for your success, and then you were equally welcoming of what they did to help you as a teammate as well. So that was pretty special to see.
It really was, You got guys like Craig Wieners and Seth McDonald that actually watched those guys hit those books every single night, and I knew where they were going to be later in life. Those guys came out, as well as some guys that went on to play basketball on another level. If it wasn't playing pro ball, they were playing ball overseas somewhere. But it was a great turnout. Those guys came out and supported me. I look at that jersey retirement, that number 14 was actually my brother's high school number. I took that in dedication to him. So when you look up in the stands, you're looking at my brother. And then you look at Ellis, the name Ellis, that's me. But most important was the year 79 to 83. That was all those guys on that floor that came out to support me. Those were my teammates. So I look at the whole ceremony. When you look up there and you see Ellis, don't concentrate on so much on that. Concentrate on 79 to 83. Those guys made all that possible.
That's excellent. And I'm pleased to hear the background behind your number 14, because I'm always fascinated by the numbers that players wear and if there's any significance behind them. So clearly you had some great significance there with your brother.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the 1983 NBA draft, the Dallas Mavericks selected you with the 9th pick overall, and just 2 picks later, your fellow teammate to be, Derek Harper, was also selected by the Mavs. Were you there at the draft, or did you stay home? I couldn't see much footage of the 83 draft on YouTube.
I did stay home, so I didn't go. I actually checked into a hotel. I was still on campus at University of Tennessee. I checked into a hotel and watched it on television.
Oh, wow.
But I was nervous about the whole ordeal. You know, I thought I had the opportunity to go number 3 in the draft. The Houston Rockets had the Dunk and Ralph Sampson number 1. Incredible amount of talent there. But I slipped down to number 9 to Dallas, and I thought that was a great choice. Anybody that chose me, I thought it was a great choice. So I was a nice pick in the draft overall. And I looked at that team, and I knew they were young. It was a new franchise, but they were up and coming. And with the draft picks they had the years after me, they were able to build a powerhouse. The Mavericks, at one point, I think it was 86, they had the best record in the NBA. And then 3 years later, that came into the draft.
Speaking of your time with the Mavs, there was a fantastic and wild finish to the 5th and deciding game in the first round of those 84 playoffs, which was your first season in Dallas. You're against your future team, Supersonics. The game was played at Southern Methodist University, I think it was, in a place called Moody Coliseum, because Reunion Arena was unavailable due to a tennis tournament, from what I read. You guys won by 1 point in overtime, but your team got called back from the dressing rooms to play the final second of the clock off because it didn't start initially the first time around. Do you remember the game I'm referring to?
Oh, wow. That's so long ago. Oh, you know what sticks out of my mind, Adam, is getting to the playoffs that first year, and I'm on the court with Derek Harper. And Derek, I always thought Derek should be in the starting lineup as a rookie. And he finally worked his way into the starting lineup. And it was my goal to be a starter also. I believed that I was going to walk into the NBA and become an instant star because I was a star player in high school and college. But when you get to that level, you get to understand it real fast that everybody on this level can play basketball. But Derek got that opportunity quicker than I did. I happened to be on the floor with him playing against the Lakers. And there was a timeout. The Lakers was ahead by 1. And Derek had to understand that we were ahead and dribbled the time off the clock. And I remember how crushed he was about that. And I sat down with Derek and we talked. What I wanted to do was, and I did tell him this, that I wish it was me instead of you. I believe I can handle it a lot better. Because the first time I ever played organized basketball was in junior high school. And we had a jump ball. And somehow the ball came to me. And I shot the ball in the wrong basket. And that was embarrassing. So I was able to get that out of my system real quick. So going through situations like that, I believe I could have handled it better. But yeah, that situation with the Mavericks was, we had Dick Motta. I believe Dick Motta's the best coach in the game. He was the ex-coach. We made a timeout. If you were down by 1 or 2 points, that you could pull this game out. And I love coaches. They'd drop a play to make it simple. All you had to do is put the ball in the basket. So you walk back out onto the floor. In those situations, you can get it done.
I remember that play you're talking about where Derek dribbled out the clock, and I think he actually had a chance to redeem himself in a future game against the Lakers from memory, where the ball was kicked back out to him. I think Worthy or someone might have just threw it back out. Derek caught it and then hit a three-pointer at the buzzer. Am I correct? Were you on the team at that stage?
No, I wasn't on the team. I left there in 86.
You were in Seattle by that stage.
Right. I was trying to be patient. The first 2 years I was very patient, but in that third year it was a little difficult because they had brought in players like Detlef Schrempf and they brought in Sam Perkins, and those young guys were getting more minutes than I was getting. So I got impatient. I believe if you sit on that bench long enough, you're going to start doubting your ability to play the game. So I use practice as my play time. If you walked into one of our practices, you would think I was one of the star players. If you didn't come to practice, you were going to get embarrassed. That was work time for me because I knew I wasn't going to get the minutes that I wanted. So I was trying to prepare myself. I was fortunate to get an opportunity to go to Seattle. Lenny Wilkins traded for me, and Bernie Bickerstaff coached me and gave me the green light to go play basketball. It was fun there.
What was your reaction to actually first hearing the news of the trade going through? I think you were sent to Seattle in exchange for Al Wood. What do you remember about hearing about the trade and your initial thoughts there?
I didn't know what to feel. You know, it's what I requested. I wanted to be traded, but once I got traded, I had to feel it offhand immediately that, man, I'm not good enough. They traded me. So you go through that emotional field, and then you get to Seattle, and you got to figure out how you're going to fit in this situation, and you just work at it again. It was a nervous feeling. Can you actually get this done? Can you play? Can you play on this level? So I didn't know what to expect until I got to Seattle and got around the guys and got an understanding of what our coach wanted from me. It was just a process that I had to go through. Bernie made me feel comfortable. I'll never forget Bernie calling a timeout once because I was always a team player. But Bernie asked me to shoot the basketball. He called a timeout because I had turned the ball over a couple of times trying to make passes to teammates. And he said to me in a timeout, while the guys are all standing around, "You're here to shoot the basketball. That's why you're here. If you insist on passing it, you can sit down next to me." So I looked at, he said, "Your teammates expect you to shoot it when you catch the ball." So I looked into their eyes and I said, okay. He just gave me the green light to just let it go.
Oh, that's great.
Let it go. So I was able to make that transition easily with the Bernie Bickerstaff. He took advantage of the talents that I had.
And that was an incredible transition that you made. In 1987, your first season with the Sonics, it was remarkable. You were named the NBA's most improved player. Then you set a record for the greatest single season turnaround in points per game. You went from about 7 points a game to almost 25 a contest. And I think you also were working with Tom Newell as well. A great friend of mine, Todd Spear, here in Australia, suggested that I ask you about your relationship with, I think he was the then assistant coach, Tom Newell in Seattle.
Yes.
How was that whole transition, just going to play, having that green light, as you said, and then developing your game so well in 1987 there, Dale?
Well, we were picked to lose more games than anybody in the NBA that year. We were picked to finish dead last. The Sonics were rebuilding. We had 10 new players on that team. So there was no pressure on us to go out and do something special. And so we creeped into the playoffs. We won 41 games, lost 41 games, I believe. And we just happened to face Dallas. And throughout the course of the year, they had beaten us 5 times by an average of 20-plus points a game. They were drilling us. I believe the first game of the playoffs, the best of 3. It's not like it is now. So it was a 5-game series. Well, they beat us the first game by, I believe, 30-plus points. And we were able to come back and defeat them. We beat them 3 straight games. And we just took off from there. But we weren't expected to do anything special. When we ended up in the Western Conference Finals that year against the Lakers. The Lakers swept us, of course. They had some of the greatest players ever played a game on that team.
They did. They did.
Yeah, and they went on to win the NBA Finals. They won the championship that year. But it was a fun year. It was an incredible year. I'll never forget it. But I increased my points. The biggest increase in points from one year to the next in NBA history. Just because Bernie gave me the green light to go play basketball. And I had teammates who were willing to sacrifice their games at times just to get me the ball. It was an incredible experience.
And also in that playoff series you're talking about against the Mavs, which of course is your former team, you had some fantastic games. In the second game of the series you had over 30 points and 6 boards and 6 assists, and then you hit a couple of late free throws with a few seconds left in Dallas to steal home court advantage heading back to Seattle. So Game 3 was an absolute monster game for yourself. I think it was a then career high. You had 43 points and 14 rebounds. You went up 2 games to 1. So how important were those 2 victories? You said that you won the 3 straight to win the series, but to get that win in Dallas against your former team and then also come back to Seattle and close out the series, like how important was that for you from an individual or team standpoint there?
We were lacking a little confidence in our ability to beat Dallas, and looked at some game film when Bernie set us down and said, this is why we can't get it done, because we're rushing shots because we can't get the ball across half court. Mm-hmm. Back then you could hand check. There's no hand checking rule in place now. If you touch a guy that's facing you, it's out. But Nate McMillan was trying to get the ball up the court against Derek Harper. He's one of the best defenders I've ever seen. And hands. Derek and I came into the league at the same time, and Derek and I would play one-on-one at the practice every single day. And we'd go at each other. But he had great hands. He could control your movements. If you were trying to go right, he'd force you to go left easily. So we had trouble getting into our offense. So we get the ball cross court, we were rushing shots. So that is why they were beating us. So we were able to make adjustments by putting Xavier McDaniel and Maurice Lucas in the backcourt to put some pain on Derek, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So the deal was to throw the ball into Nate, and Nate just sprints up the court while Derek is guarding him. So one of those guys hit him with a hard pick. So the rest of the series, Derek was looking behind his back to find out where Lucas was and where McDaniel was on the floor. So Nate was able to move the ball down the court, and we would get on into our offense in enough time to get a good shot off. And that's how we were able to defeat them. Just that little simple move. And when we were able to beat them that first game, that gave us all the confidence that we needed to go ahead and win that series. We said we can beat these guys. It's just winning a game. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you had two enforcers like X-Man, Xavier McDaniel, and Lucas as well, who were setting those picks and certainly doing some of the dirty work. You played alongside just some fantastic players in your career, and I know it's probably hard to narrow down just a few, but who are some of the guys who you still catch up with or speak with regularly these days that were part of your playing career, Dale?
I had the pleasure of playing with Gary Payton as a rookie when he came in. I saw him as a rookie. And Shawn Kemp also come in and play. And that was fun because they had got numbers. The three of us any given night could score 30-plus points. I played with Dikembe Mutombo here in the Atlanta area. That's where I'm living now. That's where I grew up back home. There's so many. I had a chance to go to Dallas and play with Rodman David Robinson, Avery Johnson. And I thought we had a good chance to win the championship there. I elected to leave San Antonio and go to Denver, where they play with Dikembe and that young team, and take a step backwards by coming off the bench. I accepted a six-man role. That was part of the deal, that I accept that deal and be a part of the team. I said, absolutely. My goal was to win an NBA championship, or at least compete for one. But had I known that Duncan was going to come into San Antonio the following year, I probably would have stayed in San Antonio.
Yeah. He was a pretty good player, that Tim Duncan.
Yeah. I would love to play with him. My goal was to play with a true center, and I never had a chance to do that as a youngster. I was forced to play the center position. In high school and college, I played some center. And when I got to the NBA, the first few years, I played with Donaldson, was a decent center. I never played with a marquee center like a David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, and my all-time favorite, center, who is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I pretended I was him as a kid playing on the playgrounds, playing with guys like that, and give myself a chance. The game has evolved. It was a inside-out game when I was playing. You establish the paint and then work from there out and shoot shots, because there was no three-point line in high school or college when I was coming up.
And that makes it even more remarkable, the fact that you were the first player to reach 1,000 made three-point field goals, given the fact that in your early formative stages of your career in high school and into college, there's no three-point line. So at what stage did you start to develop that into such a money-making shot for yourself, going from strength to strength to get that incredible achievement?
I was always forced to play the post-up position when I was playing organized basketball, but if you saw me in the off-season or saw me in the gym working out, running up and down the court with the players, just getting in shape, you could never catch me posting up. I always played on the perimeter. I always felt if I was going to get to the level I wanted to get to was playing NBA basketball, I was not going to be a post-up player. There's no way I could post up a Charles Barkley or Karl Malone. Those guys are too big, too strong. Mm-hmm. And so I worked on the other aspects of the game, shooting the ball from the perimeter. And when I got into the NBA, I was drafted as a small forward, and Mata had no clue that I could shoot the ball from the perimeter until he saw me playing one-on-one or just warming up for practice. And I had the range that I had, but as a kid coming up, I always played out on the perimeter. I never liked the post-up game.
And speaking of playing on the perimeter, I'd love to just touch on the 1988 All-Star Weekend in Chicago, where you were in the iconic Three-Point Shootout final against Larry Bird. You elected to shoot first, and I just watched this again last night to refresh my memory, and your first two racks were great, and then you finished up with 15 points. What are your thoughts on what happened next, the atmosphere in Chicago Stadium, and then Larry's dramatic last rack of shots?
That event actually took place in Dallas. It took place in Dallas. It was for the first three-point shoot contest. I'll never forget it because everybody was there warming up. All the contestants were getting ready. and Larry came in late. And the first thing he said was, "Who's playing for second place?" Larry was one of those type of guy, real cocky. So, and I looked around the room, looked into the other guy's eyes. No one said anything. But my attitude was, I'm going to beat this guy. I'm going to beat him. I'm going to stick it to him. The biggest mistake I made was electing to shoot first. You know, Larry's a clutch player. He's a clutch player. I won the coin toss, and I decided to shoot first simply because I was already warmed up. I thought I could put some pressure on him, but it was the wrong thing to do. But hindsight, if I could do it all over again, I'd take the chance to shoot last and give myself a real good chance of winning that contest. But I wanted to win it real bad.
I love the competitiveness even all those years later. It's so good to hear. You and Larry each competed in the first three-point shootouts against one another, and I believe it was 88 was when he actually put up his index finger and then walked to center court as he hit that final shot.
Right.
But it's great to hear that story about when he came into the dressing room beforehand and was saying at one of those shootouts, who's coming second. That just sort of sums up everything. It's something I've wanted to confirm one way or the other for some time now, so it's great to hear from someone who was there. Halfway
through his round, I was sitting next to Danny Ainge on the bench. Danny was hit me on my leg. You got him. You got him. You got him. It's that Danny Ainge is his teammate. You got him. You got him. And Larry made that last shot for 2 points to defeat me. And heart sank a little bit. But it was a wonderful experience. It was nerve-wracking, really. I've always felt like anybody that gets on to a nice groove could win that contest because they're all wonderful shooters.
Before we started recording today, I was briefly talking about the All-Star weekend in Houston in 1989. I have really fond memories of that because my brother Luke and we used to watch the 89 All-Star game on an old VHS tape that we recorded back in the day here in Australia. You had 27 points on 12 of 16 from the field, and you had 6 rebounds as well, almost equaling the great output from Karl Malone, who won the MVP. And you actually won the three-point shootout the day prior. Just a sensational performance. What are your memories from that All-Star appearance in Houston there, Dale?
No, I enjoyed every minute of that. Yeah, my locker was right next to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was my childhood hero. I got to sit next to him. I didn't say 2 words. I could say I was in awe. But and that was his last year in the league. But Magic Johnson was on the All-Star team. He actually gave up his spot so Kareem could finish out his career as on the All-Star team. And I was looking forward to playing him with Magic, but I didn't know he was going to do that. And I ended up sitting right next to Kareem. And I had to face Michael Jordan, who was best ever played the game of basketball. I had a chance to go against Michael. I went into that game with a lot of confidence because I just won that three-point shooting contest.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was running up and down the court with John Stockton, one of the best assist men in the game. So he made the game seem real easy. And I really always wanted to play with Magic. They make the game real easy for guys like me that can shoot a basketball. But it was a fun experience. Yeah.
You mentioned how you went up against the Lakers in the 87 Western Conference Finals. How was it actually just playing against someone that you grew up obviously idolizing in those Western Conference Finals and then compare that to how it was when you were sort of sitting next to him before the 89 All-Star game?
I got drafted. I had gone through training camp. I had played a few games. And then the Lakers came to Dallas to play us. And I was on the floor and I stood next to Kareem. It just finally hit me. My dream has come true. I'm playing NBA basketball. It never dawned on me. All I looked at is, okay, I'm here. Let me work at this thing. Let me get it done. But it finally hit me when I was able to see Kareem up close and personal. Man, I'm actually playing NBA basketball. This is unbelievable. This was my dream as a child. I mean, a young kid to be able to get to this level. So it was an awesome experience.
Oh, that's fantastic. I just love hearing these sort of stories. So thank you for indulging me. I was going to say, in the 89 season, you were named to the 3rd team All-NBA alongside guys like Terry Cummings, Dominic Wilkins, Robert Parrish and Mark Price. So some very good company there. Historically, how does it feel to be considered in amongst the NBA's top 15 players, and particularly in that 89 season, you're an all-star. Just some great achievements. Winning the three-point shootout, where does that sort of rate overall?
You know, I didn't pay much attention to it, Adam, when I was playing basketball. I just loved the game.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm retired, I was able to reflect back on some of the things I was able to achieve and actually start talking about basketball. I never talked about it much. It was just my job. It's just when I went to go do it, I was trying to get better and better at it. After retirement, I was able to think back. It was awesome. It was awesome experience. I believe I played in the best era of basketball. I don't believe there'll ever be another era like that. You know, you have a lot of great athletes playing the game right now, but that era of basketball, I miss it. I miss watching the Celtics and the Lakers competing for a championship if I wasn't there to compete for one. I miss watching Michael Jordan win a championship year after year after year. and seeing the Pistons, the bad boys, how they won championships. There were some great basketball players. It was a great era. It was fundamentally sound. The game was inside out, and every possession was valued. I mean, it was unbelievable. And to play and to make it into the NBA and that group in itself was an incredible achievement when I reflect back on it.
I almost get goosebumps, seriously, hearing about this sort of stuff and the fondness that you have looking back on your career. And I agree 100% how it's an era that's unfortunately long gone, but I absolutely love. And that's why I even made this podcast in the first place, was just to have an opportunity to maybe speak to some of the players that I looked up to. And of course, you're one of those said players. So it's just fantastic to have this chance to chat. I can't go past the mention of Michael Jordan there. I think in the 88 season, when you were with the Sonics, you had a really great game against Jordan at Chicago Stadium. He had, I think, 39 points. You lit it up for about 34 yourself. They won in overtime. I'm not expecting you to remember the game itself, but can you maybe just talk about some of the battles that you guys had, Bulls versus Sonics, when you were back really probably at the peak of your athletic career? Correct me if I'm wrong. And then some of your battles that continued on when you were with, teams like the Bucks or when you went to the Spurs and so on. How were those sort of battles against Jordan and the Bulls?
They were fantastic. I loved every minute of that. It was easy to get up for playing against a guy like Jordan because I looked at him as he's the best in the game right now. Every year that, he came back with something new. When he came into the league, I didn't think he had very good shooting ability, so you could play off him a little bit because he had such a quick first step. You could play off of him and defend him that way. And then he comes back, he's got a jump shot. Now you got to play him honestly. He's getting behind you, he's getting around you and getting into the lane and dunking the basketball. And then the year that he stepped away from basketball, he came back with a fadeaway jump shot.
Yeah.
So I looked at Michael as one of the hardest working guys in the game. His goal was to be the best to ever play the game, and he's reaching towards that goal. I believe when you set goals up that high, the game will reveal itself on how much work you got to put into it to actually get there. It's not just a God-given talent. You got to put the time in, too. And I believe Michael was one of those guys that worked at it constantly. We had a great deal of success against Michael with the Sonics because we forced him to the baseline. I didn't have to worry if he got around me. I used the lines as a way to defend Michael, the baseline and the sideline. So the goal was not to let him get to the middle of the floor. That's why he was most creative. And I understood that my teammates were behind me. I didn't have to look behind me. They were supposed to be in position to defend. They knew exactly which way I was going to force them to come. We had a great deal of success. It was easy to get up for a game against Michael. And the most difficult games to get up for back then was the Clippers. They were the worst team in the league. It was hard to get off the couch to go to the arena. But once you got to the arena and hear the excitement in the arena, then it gets you going. It gets you going. But I'll never forget guys on my team would joke with me every time Michael was getting ready to come to town or we're going to Chicago. Oh, you got to face Black Jesus. That's what they would call it. You have to see Black Jesus tonight. That was the funniest thing. And I said, okay, you keep playing. I'm going to let Black Jesus drive around me. And I'm not going to be on that poster hanging on someone's wall getting dunked on. It's going to be one of you guys getting dunked on.
Oh, that's so good.
We played an exhibition game at the University of Tennessee, my alma mater, against the Bulls. And the guys were ragging on me about that. He's getting ready to embarrass you. I got a little anxious about that game because I didn't know. It's just an exhibition game. They were experimenting with Michael playing the point position. So when they introduced Michael as a point guard, I started laughing. I said, I don't have to guard him. You're guarding him. I love Michael. He's a good guy. He's down to earth. And I can't say anything bad about any of those guys I played against. They seemed all great guys. And it was just a great era.
Totally. And thanks for sharing that sort of story there. That's fantastic, especially in front of your, adopted home crowd, of course, in Tennessee as well. So that's even more special, I guess, of a memory. I'd like to just quickly touch on the last couple of seasons of your NBA career before we just sort of start to wrap things up. And I really appreciate the time you've afforded me so far, Dale.
Okay.
In October of 97, you were traded back to Seattle and you played a couple more seasons with the Sonics. And then in the 98 season, you led the NBA in three-point field goal percentage, shooting an incredible 46.4%. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of players that would have been happy just to shoot that percentage on their two-point field goal attempts. How do you sort of look back on that impact that you made as a long-range shooter? And then, of course, you had many greats to follow, like, Reggie Miller, and, of course, the more modern-day three-point bombers like Steph Curry even. So you've left a great legacy of sorts as the original three-point marksman, being that first player to reach those 1,000 three-pointers made.
I was in Denver. I was at Denver actually with that young team that became Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf and a few others. I thought they were up and coming, and my contract was up. I got a call from Lenny Wilkins here in Atlanta, actually, and Lenny was the guy that traded for me to come to Seattle.
Right.
And he asked me to come to Atlanta. I said, okay. And the very next day, I got a call from George Karl in Seattle, and Seattle was in the finals the year before. And again, my goal is always to compete for a championship.
Yeah, of course.
He asked me to come to Seattle. And I said, back to Seattle? He said, yeah. I said, well, I just told Lenny that I was going to come to Atlanta. I'm going to have to call him and let him know I'm going back home. Because I thought that he can get back there again. So that's the reason I ended up back in Seattle.
Wow.
During that period of time. But, it was easy to play with guys like Gary. It was a lot easier to play with Nate McMillan, to be honest with you. Nate knew how to deliver the ball to me because we came into Seattle the same year. He knew how to deliver the ball.
Yeah.
So all I had to do was get prepared. So I had coaches. I'd tell the coach while I'm working out after practice, throw the ball at my knees or throw it at my shoulder, throw it above my head. Let me catch it and shoot it. Let me get the ball in position to shoot it because there's no telling where Gary's going to throw the ball. But Nate was great at delivering. Nate and Avery Johnson was fantastic guards I played with at delivering the ball right to my chest. So all I had to do was focus on putting the ball in the basket. Well, Gary was fun to play with because he drew so much attention. He developed a jump shot. He didn't have much of one when he came into the league, and he could post up too. So he would draw double teams. So I was able to play with Gary, and it opened up the floor. It was easy for me to get shots off. I ended up shooting a lot of wide open shots. And Gary was fun to play with.
Yeah, you had some great teammates along the whole journey there. Just before we sort of finished talking about your NBA career, Basketball Digest, which used to be a great little magazine that came out back in the day, they used to have a regular feature called The Game I'll Never Forget. And we've covered some great games today, and you might have already talked about it, but is there a single game from your whole career which springs to mind for whatever reason as one that you'll never forget?
I would have to go back to the Dallas series, defeating them after we were picked to lose more games in the NBA. And we ended up in the Western Conference Finals. I would have to go back to that series. The two shots that I made as a free throw line to actually get us our first win against Dallas that year after playing them 6 times. That was... I can't put a word on it. Let me tell you, Adam, I used to have reoccurring dreams about getting to the free throw line and the games online is like winning the championship. And I'm at the free throw line and I got to make 2 free throws for us to win. And I got myself in that situation and I knocked down the shots. The dreams kept coming. But see, because all I ever wanted to do was compete for one. But that's a lot more difficult than shooting a 3-pointer to me, a free throw. Time to think about what you're doing. And I believe in any sport that you're playing, as you said, it's just natural. You just react. Once you understand the game, you just go play it. I guess that's why there were reoccurring nightmares, having to think about what you're doing and shoot free throws to win the game. But beating down for the first time after playing 3 years, like the opportunity to defeat them on their home floor in front of their fans. I think that game probably right there stands out the most.
Yeah, great to hear. Now, in the show notes to this episode, I'll include some links that are YouTube footage of some of these things that we're talking about. There's a great clip I watched last night that's titled Revenge of Dale Ellis, and it's all about those 87 playoffs against the Mavs. And there's about 15 minutes of highlights from that 4-game series. I'll definitely include links to that. You might have even seen it for probably some time yourself. Do you have many videotapes or DVDs of your games that you actually played in, Dale?
I do not, Adam. And it's funny that you mentioned that. I was telling my brother yesterday that I have to get some stuff. See, he adopted a kid that's 5 years old, and I have a 4-year-old. It'll be 5 in September. He's seen pictures of me in the house, and he understands I play basketball. And I take him out during this time of year on the courts and let him play around a little bit. I won't force anything on him, but I want him to understand what his dad did. But he's never seen clips of me. But there is a video game out right now. I was telling my brother, I need to get it on television. Because I would love to. No,
Sorry, it cut out a little bit there. You just said about television.
Yeah, you have Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson playing for Golden State right now. Their fathers I played basketball against.
Yeah, Dell.
Yeah, it's just a pleasure to watch, to see that I understand how proud they are of their boys. I love to see my kid do something like that, but I'm not the type of parent that will push anything on them. I understand if you're going to get to that level, you have to love what you're doing, and whatever you do best is probably what you should pursue. So I wouldn't push anything on him. He has never seen anything. I mean, I have no clips of anything here. But at some point, I will get them to let them see it.
Oh, definitely. That'll be fantastic for them to see all the things that you achieved. And It's great to see photos and read stories. But some of the footage that I saw just in the lead up to our chat today, and I've watched a number of your games already over many years just through what I've obtained in DVD trades and whatever else. There's some amazing footage on YouTube. So in the link to this episode, when it goes live, there'll be a number of videos that people can check out as well, which just show some of the great things that you did on the court. Just one last thing before we chat about an upcoming charity event, which sounds very interesting. Your number 14 jersey at Tennessee was retired in a pre-game ceremony. We briefly touched on it near the start of this chat. Back in 2014, you joined elite company such as Ernie Grunfeld and Bernard King and Allen Houston. I think you're the only 4 guys to have your jerseys retired.
That's right.
So you played 4 years with Tennessee. You graduated from the school whilst I think you were playing with the Mavericks, which is incredible in itself to be able to do that whilst playing pro basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you rate those achievements amongst the many things that you've had and that we've chatted about today, Dale?
Well, I'm the first in my family to get a college degree. You know, I didn't care much about school. I was an average student. I did just enough to get by. All I've ever wanted to do was play basketball. I loved the game. I grew up playing sandlot football, baseball, whatever. We played in the streets all day long until no one wanted to play anymore. So I exhausted myself every single day, but I'd pick up a ball and play it when no one wanted to play anymore. And I love basketball, but so that's all I ever wanted to do. So I did just enough to get by. My mother really wanted me to go back and get a college degree. She's the reason I did it. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Right.
But it took me 2 summers to get it done. And when I got my diploma, it gave me the understanding I can achieve anything I set my mind to. So the sky's the limit. If you just work at it, it showed me that. So I'm proud to have been able to do that. I have 2 kids with college degrees now. My son graduated out of Wake Forest with a business degree. And my daughter out of USC in California has a master's in film.
Wow.
So, you know, I set a standard for the ones that come behind me. So, and I believe that's what my mother was looking at. So I'm proud to have achieved that.
Oh, that's great achievements for sure. And great that your kids have also done some great things as well in terms of their college graduations as well.
Mm-hmm.
In early June, only a couple of weeks away, June the 6th, actually to be precise, alongside another legend and former teammate of yours, Dikembe Mutombo, you're taking part in what's called the inaugural Breakthrough Atlanta celebrity basketball game. All the proceeds from the event, from what I understand, will support the Breakthrough Atlanta summer program, and then there's also the Atlanta chapter of the Retired Players Association. Do you mind just talking a little bit about that charity game and some of the players who may be taking part? What can you sort of tell us at this stage about that game that's coming up, Dale?
Right. I'm president of Atlanta chapter of the Retired Players Association. And as president, my job is to help the retired players from being active players to retirement, help them with the transition, as well as raise money. And we come together and decide where we want to allocate those monies and give back into the community. We fundraise. We teamed up with Breakthrough Atlanta, and Breakthrough Atlanta is a group that was formed to help kids get college prepared. They run their summer school program out of Beloved School, which is a private school where the Kimbe Mutombo's kids attend.
Right.
So it was a no-brainer to get to Kimbe to be a part of what we're doing. They started with about 75 kids, and they have about 500 kids. So they fundraise every year, and to be able to house the kids at Beloved School, as well as feed the kids and transport the kids back and forth. So it was a no-brainer to team up with them. So we'll run the charity event out of the Beloved School this year. We're excited about it. I don't know about the date that we picked, actually, June 6th. The playoffs is still in process. We were looking at Harding, who comes back here in the summers to work out as participating, as well as Josh Smith. And those guys are deep into the playoffs, so they won't be able to participate, as well as Joe Johnson lives here in the summer. But we're trying to get Joe to participate. We're still looking for guys. Mike Record is COO of our Atlanta chapter that puts on a tournament every year, so he has a host of players that will participate. It's a first-time event. It's just something that we want to grow, and I believe we can establish a long relationship with Breakthrough Atlanta. It's right down all of our alleys as players, giving back to young people and sharing our experiences with them.
Well, it sounds like a great event, and being the inaugural one, I'm sure that it's going to go from strength to strength. Something to look forward to, and I'll include some links to details about that game in the show notes to this episode as well. Obviously, it's one of your passions is helping former players adjust to life after their playing career is over, and that's obviously one of the important things that the Retired Players Association does. So as head of the chapter there, what sort of keeps you interested, and what are you passionate about these days after your playing career is over there, Dale?
Well, my goal, one of the things I wanted to do was be able to travel the world. And through the game, I've been able to do that. I've traveled all around the world. I've been to the Middle East on 5 occasions to entertain our troops in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Kuwait. And I've traveled all throughout Asia, Europe, as well as South America, playing exhibition games with some retired players. I was working with young people as an active player in Seattle. I had ran basketball camps in Tacoma and Seattle. And I come back here in the summers and work with kids. So I enjoy teaching. And I still use basketball as a tool to get the kids in front of you to teach them, be able to teach them life skills, mentor them. So a lot of stuff that I missed as a kid, because I grew up without a father and a family of 6, and the youngest in the family. So my mom would go to work and say, you go to school, you get your work done. It wasn't like mom had a chance to sit down with us and work through things, figure this thing out on your own. So I made a lot of mistakes. What I try not to do is make the same mistakes twice. But what I've learned through over the years, I like to share. I believe knowledge and wealth is something to give back. You can't take that with you. And I enjoy doing it. I've had the pleasure to be able to work with Tobias Harris, who was a player down in Orlando.
Yes.
Orlando. And he's easy to work with. So I do some training. But Tobias, to me, is probably the hardest working guy in the NBA right now. So he's easy to work with. So I enjoy teaching. I like giving back. I like seeing anybody and everybody improve, whether it's on the court or off the court.
Do you think that you may be interested in returning to the NBA in some respect in terms of offering coaching or assistant coaching or scouting or anything like that? Does that interest you, or are you happy to be doing exactly what you're doing at the moment?
I had opportunities to do that after I retired. I had opportunities to get into doing what Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith and Shaq is doing right now.
All right.
I passed all that up. My mother was not doing well. My mother passed away 2 years of diabetes. So I took on that responsibility. I said, I'm going to take care of my mom. That's what I'm going to do. And she's been gone for 2 years. So the past 2 years, I've been trying to get back to basketball, get more engaged. The easiest thing to make transitions for any ball player is to get back to what you know, the game. So I was able to stay around it with the camps that I do, as well as some training that I do. Stay around that way. But if an opportunity arises where an NBA team was looking for someone to come in and somewhat mentor these kids on the mental aspect of how you prepare for a basketball game, the mental aspects of how you approach this thing on shooting, and man, I would welcome that in a heartbeat.
I can imagine, and you'd be perfectly suited for that, because throughout your whole career, even from afar here in Australia, and what I've read and since researched about your career and just chatting with you today, it's clear that you're obviously one of those very focused individuals. And I'm sorry to hear about your mother's passing, of course. She's obviously been a massive influence on your career, as you mentioned throughout our chat today as well. I know you do have a Twitter account. Is that something that you're looking to perhaps get a bit more into, the social media side of things, Dale? Or do you think you're just happy the way things are going at the moment, using it every now and then?
I'm using social media now. I write blogs. I haven't written a blog since August of last year. If you go to telus.sportsblog.com, you can see some of the stuff I've written. The first blog you'll see is from a ghostwriter, and the last blog, it was a ghostwriter. The sports blog was actually trying to get me to start back writing again. I enjoyed the writing. It was challenging because I'm not much of a writer. Some of the blogs you'll read, you have to understand it took me 30, 40 minutes to put those blogs together.
I can understand.
I understand now how important it is to stay relevant through the writing. So I use it as a tool to be able to get your agenda off the ground as well. I enjoyed that. So that's what I'm looking forward to getting back to is writing the blogs. I'm engaged with Facebook as well.
Okay, great. To wrap things up, Dale, it's just been an absolute pleasure to have this chance to chat with you for the best part of an hour. Thanks very much for putting up with some of the patchy audio.
That's okay.
Thanks again for taking time to speak with me today.
No, it's a pleasure, Adam. If you need anything, please don't hesitate. We'll do this again.
Oh, I'd love to chat with you again.
It's no problem.
I'd love to invite you on many times in the future and
okay.
just reminisce about certain things. And I just love talking old school hoops, and to have somebody as yourself who's achieved so many great things on and off the court, it's just been fantastic. So thanks again. And also I appreciate the Retired Players Association for helping connect us. So thanks to Paul Corliss and the team there as well.
Well, Adam, if I can do anything for you, please don't hesitate. Just reach out to me.
That's very kind.
I'm easy to find through Paul, and Paul knows what kind of guy I am. Paul knows me.
That's fantastic. Have a great evening.
You too. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks for listening. I welcome your interaction with the show. You can suggest topics or guests that you'd like to hear conversations with. Leave me a voicemail. Simply visit inallairness.com/voice. Click Start Recording, leave your message, and then press stop. You can even listen to it back before it's submitted. Press send and you're done. Time to share some more great feedback from fans of the show. Here is the most recent review. I'm once again up to date with all podcast reviews that have been received. Therefore, it's a perfect time now to add yours. I hope to read more in future episodes. This time, thanks to KCM81 on the USA iTunes store. The review is titled Awesome Podcast, and it reads, I thought I knew everything about 80s and 90s basketball, but Adam is the only person I feel that can rival or exceed my knowledge. Great podcast. I enjoyed going back and listening to his interviews. I'm a big MJ/Bulls fan, and this podcast gives me a chance to go back and relive those great moments. Keep up the good work. Thanks very much, KCM81. Quietly confident that's not your real name. At this point, I have to give a shout out to the fantastic basketballreference.com website, which I base a lot of my research on. It is the best website, hands down, that helps me to get prepared for each and every episode of the podcast. Worldwide, the show currently has 51 reviews, 48 on iTunes and 3 on Stitcher. Thanks for your continued support. If you add a review, I'd love to read it out on a future episode. Your ratings and reviews are one of the best ways to support the podcast. If you enjoy the show, please do tell your basketball-loving friends about it. Word of mouth recommendations really help get the show out there to a wider audience and are definitely worth their weight in gold. You can subscribe to my show in various ways. iTunes, visit inallairness.com/review. Add it to your Stitcher playlist, inallairness.com/Stitcher. You can also subscribe on Pocket Casts, Player FM, TuneIn Radio, and other podcatchers. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show and share my web address with your friends and colleagues, inallairness.com. Check out the podcast archive for plenty more episodes with high-profile guests. Follow me on Twitter @inallairness. Please add your like to the show's social hub, facebook.com/inallairness. Join me next time for another edition of the show.